Teachers of Reddit. Who was that difficult parent, and how did you deal with them? Story 1, we were doing a unit on satire, and I assigned a modest proposal by Jonathan Swift. 2 days later, I got an angry email asking me what was wrong with me, and why I would ever think it appropriate to assign a piece of literature in which eating babies is sincerely advocated. She called me some nasty things, and went to the principal asking that I be fired for corrupting the youth. I calmly explained that the purpose of the piece was satire, and she didn't get it. I had to walk her through everything, explaining that Swift wasn't actually proposing eating Irish babies, but he was highlighting the notion that the English were treating the poor Irish like absolute, and most people didn't give a. But when he went to the extreme and said, well, let's eat the tasty little shits, everyone freaked out about treating anyone so poorly. He used satire to accomplish his goal of shining a light on such a sensitive subject, and it worked. Took the mom a while to figure it out, but when she got it, she was very interested in satire. I never got an apology from her, but she left me alone to teach the kids after that. Story 2, student skips class. I send an all-staff email to see if the student can be accounted for in another class. No response. I write the referral and contact the student's mother to inform her of the circumstances of the referral. The mother proceeds to go full Hulk, insisting that her child was in the classroom and that I did not see her. I explained that attendance records are legal documents and that her child's whereabouts could not be confirmed elsewhere on campus. She proceeds to screech at me, insisting that I should open my eyes while taking attendance and that I don't know how to do my job and that I should be fired. I calmly explain that she's welcome to speak with administration, then politely end the conversation, hang up, when she starts to spit expletives, saying I should be fired and that she's leaving her place of work to have a conference with me. I warn the principal, then teach my next class. A couple periods later, my principal walks into the room and lets me know that she handled it. The parent pounded her fists on the principal's desk, demanded that coverage be sent to my room so that I could be present for the conference. The principal would not allow her to talk to me, but instead called down the student. The principal pulled up the security camera footage and located the student wandering campus. The mother screeched that I did not do my job and that I should be fired. In the end, the student admitted to the entire ordeal and was issued a suspension. When they returned, I didn't address it. I let her stew in her own stupidity for the remainder of the year, a week or two. The only one who apologized was the principal. Teaching is a thankless job, but apparently there are no limits. Story 3, threw a hissy fit to my boss, and various other unrelated people over her son needing a supply item for my class. We provide the item free to any family who asks, offer a way for them to buy one, or they can get it from a store, but those options didn't suit her. I passed it off to admin. Story 4, I used to teach a private high school. I had a freshman boy who was constantly giving me trouble, refusing to do his work, showing up tardy with no excuse, texting during class, etc. Not the worst behavior I've ever seen, but annoying and consistent. One day, he strolled in 10-ish minutes late talking on his phone. Nope. I told him to keep on walking to the vice principal's office. As he left the room, he said to whoever he was talking to on the phone, "Sorry, my teacher is sending me to the office." Nope. Obviously, he was suspended, and there was a major conference with his parents. During that conference, the mother continually denied that her son called me because he doesn't cuss. Okay, his son was then called in to join the conference. His explanation for his behavior said in front of his mother, I was acting like a little neato. Story 5, I had to deal with this recently. One parent demanded I change a report card because she didn't think I properly assessed her child. After some back and forth, I basically rewrote the entire report card with the same exact score, but with a specific detail for my decision on every single score. I like her kid, but I wasn't changing his grades. Story 6, my mother taught special education and had to deal with all sorts of pleasant characters. I can't remember any specifics, but there were far too many parents who would take their kids off their meds because they got better. Why would they need more? Story 7, I was called a communist sympathizer for having my AP class study Soviet propaganda and American propaganda and comparing the two. Also for encouraging critical thinking in my class. How did I deal with it? I got fellow instructors to have my back, and we let common sense put that fire out quick. Story 8, the mom of one of my students was convinced that if we wrote the perfect IEP, we could cure her son's autism. She brought lawyers to school meetings, made ridiculous demands of the school, and seemed to enjoy making school staff afraid of her. Every one of my coworkers, including administrators, was terrified of her and would bend over backwards to make her happy. I knew she was full of and got off on this type of drama and attention, so I didn't give her the time of day. I would respond to one email from her a day. She usually sent 5 to 6 to each teacher, and if she sent me more, I'd ignore them. In meetings, if she slung accusations at me, I'd simply pull up the data I took on her kid and calmly read it to her. I refused to be a part of her pathological need for attention. Plus, I hated my boss and was sick of the broken education system, so I really didn't give any about making this happy. Story 9, maybe not difficult, but definitely most surreal. A number of years ago, I happened to be in the office when a parent came in asking for something that her student completed years prior. Her student had graduated a couple years before and had apparently done a poster project of some sort while in school. I don't think the student's teacher was even still employed by the school. Now, several years later, the parent wanted it. Maybe the poster was a work of art, I don't know, but schools don't hold on to student work indefinitely. If a student doesn't take something home, it will likely be thrown out at the end of the year. The administrator in the office explained this quite patiently. The parent only got more upset. It must be somewhere. Can't we at least look? The administrator, perhaps seeing a hopeless cause, had a stroke of brilliance. I can't, but you are welcome to. The administrator led the parent over to a bunch of bookshelves of random books. If we still have it, it would be here. Pointing to the shelves, the parent spent 30 minutes convincing herself that the work really wasn't there, and left. Story 10, I wasn't a teacher, but a camp counselor. All kids with special needs were still a part of our main camp group, but we're supposed to have a special counselor that was individually assigned to them, that knew about their needs and how to deal with them. This one parent sent her kid to camp, but did not tell us that the kid had special needs. One day, the kid threw a temper tantrum unlike one I had ever seen before, and I didn't know how to appropriately deal with her. When the mom was confronted, she was refusing to believe that her child had any special needs and was threatening a lawsuit. Story 11 long, but good. Buckle up. This woman, who we will call Mrs., was the wife of one of the richest dudes in the city. Their family owned professional sports teams, buildings, businesses, you name it, they own it. The kids are a little off, living a life so vastly different from others will do that. The outdoor ed trip. We were taking the kids to a 4-day cabin camping trip. All the summerish activities, hiking, swimming, sailing, etc. Leading up to the trip, this woman came to visit me every day. I am the lead outdoor ed teacher. Was something wrong? The group wasn't right for her daughter. The food wasn't right. She claimed her kid was gluten-free, even though the kid told me personally she wasn't. Every day, for 2 weeks leading up to the trip, I dealt with this. The day we were to leave, I emailed my admin to document all of the problems and simply say, I am convinced you will write a report up on me. I have done the best I can, and here is the list of current accommodations. The trip goes great. Kids have a blast, as do I. Nothing better than taking a bunch of kids who don't get enough time away from high-performance lives and just letting them run around outside for a few days. The girl in question has a great time. I check in more than needed to keep tabs on her, document her responses, just in case. Anyways, we make it home. Kids all get picked up. I store the gear. I make my way home and crack a beer. Phone lights up. It's my admin. My boss is laughing and asks if I've checked my email yet. I ask if it's Mrs. It is. Apparently, her daughter made it home and is both mentally and emotionally disturbed from the gross conversations that occurred at night in the girls' cabin. The cabin of 14-year-old girls were talking about blowjobs at some point. And now her perfect child is spoiled because I failed at protecting her daughter's mental and emotional safety while on vacation. Now, if anyone out there has organized a trip for 50 teenagers, let alone 50 teenage girls, and then personally lead the entire thing, knows that this is very far from a vacation. She tries to get me fired, and the student who brought up the convo expelled. Even tried to sit outside the school with homemade notes explaining how 14-year-olds shouldn't know anything about. Mrs. is a huge financial contributor to the school, so this pretty much needs to be dealt with in secret. I meet with her, a counselor, and my bosses to explain that these conversations are natural and healthy. We can't put a male staff or any adult in a cabin of 14-year-old girls to supervise them. This is not regular procedure and is awkward and inappropriate for all involved. P.S. I am a male. She threatened to go to the paper. We said she had every right to, but would only be making a good experience for the kids, something to be regretted. She eventually gave up. She defined me at grad a few months later, and she was wasted. Proceeded to try to humiliate me again. Didn't work. I ended up taking her kid on several outdoor ed trips and helped her kid finish her Duke of Ed award. She eventually thanked me when I left the school for all the wonderful trips I organized. She seems to have forgotten about the time she tried to ruin my career. Turns out, in the worst of it, she was divorcing her husband. I figure a lot of her stress was being pointed at me. I get it. I just stayed professional and kept the experience for the kids the focus. Not some crazy woman who was having a hard time. Felt for her kids, though. You could see this behavior was having some serious negative impacts on their mental health. TLDR, rich mother tries to micromanage outdoor ed trip. Tries to get me fired. Embarrassed herself. We had a kid's father send him to school with a hammer in case any of those kids felt like picking on him again. We let the cops deal with that one. Story 12, I've shared this story in the past. but it's probably one of the more extreme examples. My wife is a kindergarten teacher and suspected that one of her students may be autistic. The kid couldn't communicate well at all, wasn't truly potty trained, and showed other classic signs of autism. My wife had a conference with the mother and explained that she would like him to be evaluated, but the mother refused and said that if her son did have autism, my wife was the one who caused it. My wife has learned to handle those situations much differently now. Being accused of causing autism will do that. Side story, I'm not a teacher, but I coach my kids' youth sports teams. I once had a dad approach me and try bribe me $50 to prevent a certain kid from playing in our upcoming flag football game. These were 6-year-old kids. I explained to him that I couldn't accept the money and how there was a mandatory play rule at this level. So I couldn't do it even if I wanted to. He was pissed and had to be escorted out of few games that year. Story 13, I taught private preschool, which was a lot more like an actual school than a daycare. We taught them how to read and write, speak Spanish, and learn math early on, and it was a great program. Kids flourished. I taught science in the afternoon and physical education in the morning. I had a segment about yoga, and all my 3-year-olds loved it. It taught them how to stretch and focus and learn about their little bodies, and one little boy was so excited about it. He ran up to his mom when it was pickup time and told her all about it. Well, Mom thought I was teaching her son Hinduism, which meant I was letting Satan into her kid's heart. He had to stay out of my class when I taught it to his friends or play quietly. I watched that child break. Watching everyone do something he loved, he became a different kid, and it was obvious he had a passion for many things his parents didn't want him to explore. He couldn't even be in the school play for Halloween or dress up. The worst part of it wasn't the parent yelling at me for almost an hour and almost getting fired over it, but watching a child feel left out of something he really loved because his mother was a raging. Story 14, when I taught, I sent home graded tests to be signed so that I knew the parents were at least aware of what was going on during each grading period. On kid who received an F decided to take a girl's test. I think she got a B, erase her name, and bring it back signed by his parents. The parent checked the gradebook online and sent me a note requesting a parent-teacher conference. They were infuriated that the child received an F. When they had clearly signed a test that showed an B, I agreed to hold a conference. And she came in the next morning, and she came in hot. I explained that he had brought home someone else's test, AMD, changed the name. I took about 10 minutes of verbal abuse from this lady about how her son is a good kid, and that I was lying to her and so on. I just sort of blankly stared and took her. Once she paused for a moment, I opened my desk and took out the B test. She had signed a photocopy of the girl's original test that I had taken before sending the originals home. With the girl's name on it, a photocopy of her son's original test. With an F on it, I passed these across the table and explained what he had done again, and showed her proof. I made sure to also point out the vast differences in the neat, bubbly handwriting on one test, hers, and the scrawling nonsense on the other, his. She looked at her son for a second, looked back at me, said him sorry, and walked out. Story 15, a student threatened me, cursed me, salt me for asking, ma'am, where's your hall pass? Her responses were, I don't know you, I know what you drive and your license plate number. You feel me, among other really terrible things I'd rather not repeat. Got to the parent conference with the assistant principal student, and the parent said, she cursed you because she doesn't know you. You took my child out of the learning environment because you felt threatened. She was obviously threatened herself and didn't do anything wrong. She won't be apologizing since she did nothing wrong. I'm a teacher at other high school in the district. I allow my black students to use the N-word profanity. That's how they express themselves, all while her child was laughing without correction. I felt like I was in the Twilight Zone. I now feel sorry for the kid and make zero effort to enforce the rules with her. I don't get paid enough to deal with entitlement. Story 16, let their 7th grade son manipulate them and was extremely angry and irritated when teachers wouldn't put up with it. They have an extremely smart kid, highest math score in the school with massive behavioral issues like lying, stealing, physical fighting, cheating, hiding when supposed to be testing, cannot follow direction, swearing, throwing things, etc. All the listed are things he's done. He got suspended about 14 times this year. During the last week of school, he was suspended twice, once for changing his grade in a teacher's computer during class while the teacher was out of the room, once for calling 911, and then hanging up 3 times, and on the school phone, he finally got out of school suspension. How we deal with it. Learn the way they react. If you call one parent, the other one will call in about 3 minutes. If you catch the kid, he will become compliant and shameless about whatever the crime is. Parents will show up with 20 minutes. Kid does not benefit from studying time, as he can complete all his work without help. You cannot engage with the parents. You must deflect. Edit. Autocorrect sucks. See? It does. Edit. Because questions. This is a student right now who is moving up to 8th grade. Obviously, his issues stem from other things. His being smart allows him to pass his classes without much work, but he struggles during class for various reasons like learning concepts, sitting quietly, etc. Things you are supposed to learn in 7th grade. We very rarely expel students. There was a student involved in an assault case and was suspended for over a month. Surprisingly, we have very wealthy kids in our schools. Story 17. I had a student with honest medical needs, and he had a 504 plan which allowed him extra time. However, he was a sweet but lazy middle school boy. He wasn't too concerned about doing his work. Even when given the extended time his plan dictated, he turned an assignment and answered 5 of 25 questions. I offered for him to redo it for half credit, and he was fine with the score he had. Mom didn't have a problem with me until his grade started to drop to a D, and I called her to notify her. Then all of a sudden, I wasn't following his 504 and I was singling him out when he has a medical issue, blah, blah. Other things came into play with this also, but they're pretty specific. I could see the red flags and began documenting every single assignment the kid did, the date I gave it to him, the date it was due for him, the date he actually turned it in, and any suggestions I gave him as far as completing it, etc. Sure enough, Mom soon calls a meeting with the principal, me, the special ed coordinator, etc. She sat across from the table from me and blatantly lied about what I was doing for her son, how I was treating him, etc. She specifically said she's not even following his 504 plan. He is supposed to get extra time. It was everything I could do to keep my mouth shut. My principal glanced at me and could see me practically seething. Luckily, I had explained the situation, and he totally had my back. Long story short, the meeting ended, and she still wasn't happy. But he wasn't going to get moved from my classroom, which is what she wanted, because I was, in fact, following his 504 plan. He ended up in a different study hall period to keep caught up. She was mad that he was going to be singled out by being put into a smaller study hall. You know, that class most people take to sleep and draw, and he ended up doing fine because his study hall teacher stayed on his, but that mom still bad-mouthed me throughout the years, though. Story 18, we had books in the library about myths, such as Bigfoot, vampires, zombies, and whatnot. I received a very long-winded letter that her daughter should not be reading these, and I should monitor every book that her child leaves school with. Story 19, I did my student teaching at a school that had mostly Hispanic students. A parent who had never met me and didn't know anything about me complained that I was favoring the white students. My overseeing teacher handled it by pointing out that I'm Hispanic. She said the look on the parent's face was priceless. Story 20, child doesn't do well in math. Probably pushed along through elementary middle school, and suddenly just can't cut in high school where the teachers aren't about to push you through. The whole math department, especially his teacher, is against him. I'm his science teacher. He's doing okay in my class. Not great, but okay. Mom sends me an email asking why he can't have a B in my class. I don't respond because it's now summertime, and I don't respond to those emails anyways. I learned yesterday that he's failed his math class, and Mom is going crazy about it. It amazes me that a parent would think that teachers actually have the time to just hate on their kid. Seriously? We don't. When I get home, the very last thing I think about is work and or your kid. Story 21. I had a parent fake a pregnancy to try to keep her Colombian felon boyfriend from being deported. After it didn't work, and he was given the boot, her 9-year-old daughter with mental health issues came to school and told us her mom was in labor and in the hospital. We tried calling Mom. No answer. Mom calls us back right before dismissal saying she had the baby and she's at home quick recovery resting. But baby Johnny was in the baby emergency room because he wasn't doing well. Daughter comes in the next day with pictures of what had to be a 1-year-old baby hooked up to machines, saying it was her new baby brother. Baby Johnny died 2 days later. Story 22. I've had a couple run-ins for clarity. I'm a physics and astronomy teacher at the high school level during the school year. One foreign exchange student takes my class, very polite, and got good marks. Actually really enjoyed having him in class because he asked great questions, drew little caricatures for each problem on the tests, and was great with group work. We're about 75 through the year, and we have a massive engineering project with an analysis that followed. This kid straight up plagiarized his analysis, word for word, so much so that they printed the same paper and just highlighted their name to indicate which student submitted it. 100 match. Call home to host mom. Real mom is in home country, and she understands. Even talk to host dad. He's upset, but understand the issue. Talk to kid. He cries and claims he doesn't understand English, so he didn't know what complete this individually really meant. Now keep in mind, he's never struggled to get this before when he handed in all the other lab reports individually. I take it to admin because they make the final decision at our school, so it's consistently applied. His assistant principal says no credit for either on the assignment, but can still earn credit for the class. Host dad emails me and says that I have ruined the American dream and this kid's life. He's a lawyer, so he knows that intent means everything. I wanted admin to help me write the follow-up email, so I didn't make anything worse. But it got worse anyway. Took it all the way to the school board, and the kid gets up and reads a letter about MLK and how discrimination has impacted his life. He's a white European male. School board tells me I have to give him credit. Ugh. Still makes my blood boil. 2. This is probably the worst interaction I've had with a parent. This student had special accommodations due to ADHD. I recommended at the beginning of the year that he wait a year to take physics because he got AD in math the year before and was taking the required math level course the same year as physics. I didn't want him to struggle in both at the same time and have a miserable time in my favorite subject, but mom ignores this, and he takes the class. I email home often to share behavior issues in the class, calling classroom phone, turning off projector, stealing students' backpacks, just childish pranks. I also shared my concerns about the huge amount of missing work and low marks on tests as a result of not getting practice before being assessed. My first mistake was giving him a grade contract to help him pass semester 1. I routinely offer these for struggling students, so they don't fail and feel more confident moving into semester 2. Essentially, I look at what they're missing and ask for the most important stuff and excuse the other stuff. So, if paper 1 covers the same material as practice 2 and 3, show me you can do 1, and he'll assume you could also do 23, but excuse them help you catch up. I did this with this student, and he passed by the skin of his teeth 60.09, where 60 is lowest passing mark. Semester 2 starts, and mom wants a meeting. I asked the counselor, his case manager, and my administrator to join us with mom's permission. We talked about how to help him not get behind and come up with some strategies, including me watching him write due dates in his planner and giving him mini deadlines on projects. That's a mistake too, because this actually hurt the rest of my students. I would spend 15 minutes with him every day during class because he took the bus and couldn't stay after. So, student is still falling behind. I'm still emailing my concerns. Mom asks for another meeting. I show up. She's suing me for not meeting her child's needs. Are you joking? So admin shuts down the meeting really quickly and reschedules. Next meeting has lawyers on both sides. I had 3 lawyers from the district that no one even told me were coming. I was kind of left in the dark by admin. We ended up hiring a private tutor. She was a firecracker too. Had a no-nonsense approach that I loved, and together we got the kid to pass. Parents dropped the lawsuit and moved their kid into Running Star Kids, take college classes in high school. It was a nightmare to be giving more than I had ever given a student, exhausted myself trying to help, and still be told it's not enough. You stink at teaching. You're the reason my son is failing. I felt a little better when I heard they sued the community college for not giving him special treatment, not legally required for what I hear, but it still planted the seed of doubt in my mind. I'm still a teacher, but I don't plan to keep teaching for long. It's a brutal job that can tear up your soul if you're not careful or if you care too much. Story 23, I was a preschool teacher for about a year. I had a small class, but the school gave me most of the problem children. One girl in particular was horrible, would crawl around the floor, not do her work, whine, and was very disrespectful. She started falling behind, and kids who were younger were progressing much further than her, and it was her second year in the program. The problem was with her of a grandma. She undermined everything I said, complained about me to the school, and basically thought her granddaughter was God's gift to us all. I went to the office and told them I quit for many reasons. They tried to convince me to stay, but I wouldn't. Needless to say, Grandma was no longer allowed to drop off and pick up. Luckily, the teacher who took over my class won't have to deal with her. Story 24, not a teacher, but mothership is, she teaches at special needs school. In our corner of our country, it means that every class is made from a bunch of gypsies that come from maladapted parents. Kids only go to school, so parents don't lose welfare. From the very birth, this parents show their kids that not doing anything is also a way how to get money and live relatively problem-free. That is just a background. The more the children age, the more bold they are about their parents' philosophy. One time, one of the boys from my mother's class stopped any form of activity. He refused to do tests, was foul-mouthed, and would continuously disturb the class. Mother did everything she was allowed to do to make him participate. She gave him bad marks on tests, various notes to parents, and so on. I don't know what it is called in English, but typical school stuff to ask his child behavior. One time, she was berating said boy, and he didn't quite like it. So he flipped and punched closed fist my mother right between her. She lost her breath and was in a bit of a shock. Harassment shitstorm all over. Parent called in to get the boy. Mother, the boy came, was explained the situation, and then she said, so what? He just lost his nerve. The casuality of her explanation and slight irritation that she had to leave the tranquility of her unemployed life to get to school made entire school board completely silent. Boy and his mother were prosecuted by CPS, but with no real effect. Mother is fine. Story 25, I am not a teacher, But we had this student in our class in high school who was a psycho, and she was adopted and was the apple of her parents' eyes. She used to cheat in every single test and major exams. And when she was caught, the teachers and the principal called her mother in the PDA meeting, and the woman proceeded to shove my mom out of the entrance door of the principal's office and stormed into the office and started berating to the teachers how her special little snowflake could never cheat, and also accused our economics teacher of calling her fat. Special little snowflake was also around 23 to 24 at the time, and her parents somehow faked her D. Edit. She also stole my history notes and one of my friend's geography practical notebook. Just before Aviva, when we were in 12th grade, she was barred from sitting in the exam in 12th grade. Story 26. I work with at-risk elementary-aged kids. Had several parents threaten to kill me for having called children and youth on them for very obvious abuse. One left a dozen increasingly threatening messages on the program's answering machine. One parent actually showed up at the school with a bat. Not sure how they thought that would improve the chances of their kid not being taken. Story 27, not exactly a parent, but the aunt of one of my students' legal guardian, from what I gather, called myself and the other teachers on my team into a meeting concerning bullying accusations the student was claiming that took place outside of school. Essentially, her niece was not invited to a party, and the girls at the party prank called her and said some vulgar comments towards her. It's a tricky situation because these events did not happen on school grounds, but the argument was made that it contributed to her niece's academic decline. So the administration gave the girl in charge of the bullying in-school suspension. The aunt also complained about her niece being around a boy with behavior problems and said he would be a bad influence on her, saying that the boy was constantly pestering her and whatnot. So we agreed to keep the two separated as best as we could in the hallways and in class. Well, it turns out the girl was actually putting herself in those situations. She was sitting with a group of girls who supposedly bullied her, and they seemed jovial. And she was the one flirting with the boy too. So after a few weeks went by after the parent meeting, she sends all of us a rather distasteful email about how we are not doing our jobs by allowing the students to be near each other. As a first-year teacher coming in midway through the year, I bit my tongue as far as my email response went, but I voiced my opinion to the team leader, who essentially summed up all of our comments by saying, "Your niece is purposely doing this. Her grades are fine. We understand you're trying to be protective, but she's the one actively seeking the attention of everyone." She, of course, didn't like that and said that we were shortchanging her niece's education and that we should move the boy, to which I replied, "Doing so would negatively impact his education. We cannot fulfill that request. Have a long discussion with your niece." Story 28, this one tried to choke an EA because the EA politely asked her not to park in the school parking lot. There were signs of her being very difficult, treating me like, and being abrasive, but this was loco. Principal called the cops who went to the parents' house and told her to settle down. Had the EA pressed charges, it would have been assault and the woman would have lost her RN. The kid is still in my class. We have someone supervised to pick the child up outside from the woman's car, and he's brought to her car before the end of the day again. Always supervised, so I have no contact with her. When she does contact me, I kill her with kindness. No point in trying to fight back. I prefer not to be assaulted. Story 29, had a student try to rape me. I'm a 51, 90-pound woman, and he was 18 and half a foot taller and fairly large of frame. He stayed after class and tried to flirt with me. I tried to get him to leave, and then he got pushy and finally started trying to force himself on me. Another teacher and student came by and threw him off me. Cut to the parent and police being informed. The mother raised such a stink and got a lawyer and immediately tried to get me charged, and I was brought in and actually arrested and fired. They never even allowed the witnesses to speak. Finally, at my trial, the witnesses and lo and behold, camera footage proved what really happened. The kid is in jail, and I settled out of court with both the state and the school district for sufficient amounts that I could stop working, but I've taken an administrative role in another district. Despite everything being expunged, the stigma has followed me a little bit, and though this happened 2 years ago, I still get threatening messages from the kid's mother. I keep them and could call the cops, but I figure one family member in jail is enough. Someone PM'd me about the messages. Here is the latest when your time will come, and before that it was some lewd ones about being a pedophile and a psychopath, which is pretty ironic. Story 30, I had a parent send me emails before school even started that were accusatory, UKNOURALYR, because she claimed I was friends with her ex-husband's new wife. I wasn't, didn't even know the lady. The entire year, I tried to avoid her because she was clearly cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs. At one point, I told her I would never meet with her one-on-one, and that every message email she sent will be sent to our principal. She stayed pretty far away from me until the field trip. We arrived at the school after a long day, and she ripped into me about ruining everyone's lives. I'm a liar. I am a fraud fake. Just anything and everything she could think off pronounce, but for sure not be able to spell. The daughter was caught in the middle between both parents and fed them each complete lies to pin them against one another. Her next casualty was me. I tried to keep calm, but burst out crying after she left, still trying to rip me apart in front of 150 parents. My principal was supportive and told her to leave the campus, but I like to think karma took care of dealing for her for me. She ended up being sent to jail for a while for something stupid.